Yesterday, I kind of mentioned something about it. I didn't. I didn't intend on speaking about it because it just wasn't. I wasn't in a mental space to actually address it. But the khutbah kind of aligned with it. You know, alhamdulillah, by the qadr of Allah. And we were actually talking about the murder of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, which actually happened in the masjid. Umar was, stabbed multiple times. There were a number of Muslims a total of 13 Muslims who were stabbed all at the same time. 7 of them ended up dying, and these were the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. And so while I didn't intend on speaking on the terror attack in New Zealand yesterday, it just kind of aligned with the khutbah. And what I would say is to all of the masajid, all of the Islamic leaders, all of the professionals in the Islamic community, just as we have our Islamic Leaders Convention coming up April 20th, Saturday, April 20th in DC. These are some of the issues that we need to address, and that is the security measures that are taken in the masjid. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, "Khudhu hidrakum," take your precautions. Precautions need to be taken. When you think about a mosque and you think about Muslims in a mosque praying, we are some of the most vulnerable worshipers in any house of worship because we have certain positions in our acts of worship that puts us in very vulnerable situations. When you think about ruku' and you think about sujood, sujood is a position where the human being, the Muslim, goes down with both, with 7 bones on the ground, his face, his forehead, his nose. So that means that his eyes are facing nothing but the ground. His hands are placed on the ground. His knees and his feet are placed on the ground. That is a very vulnerable position to be in because you cannot see what's going on behind you. You cannot see what's going on around you. And this is why in the fear prayer from a fiqh perspective, the fear prayer, you do not go into sujood because you have to watch your back. In the fear prayer, you pray standing up straight, looking directly in front of you so as to be aware of your surroundings. So the prayer changes due to the climate or the environment or the atmosphere in which the Muslim finds himself in. So when you are in fear or in the middle of war or battle, and you are in fear for your life, then you do not assume the normal position of sujood. You pray as you are looking directly in front of you. So what does that tell you? That tells us that Islam does allow us to take precautions, even as it relates to altering some of the positions of the prayer so as to preserve our lives. And if that is the case, then why can't Muslim leadership, from the administrations of the masajid to the imams down to the common folk, why can't we simply understand that things, when our environment changes, when the atmosphere changes, then we also need to change. We also need to alter the way that we carry ourselves. So as of now, I think it is very important to make sure that every masjid, from California all the way back to New York, that on Friday services, as well as the normal everyday services for the prayer, there needs to be security. And I'm not talking about big brothers with beards who look scary, because that doesn't, we're not talking about that. We're talking about real security. We're talking about brothers who have registered firearms. We're talking about brothers who could be police officers, and during their off-duty time, they can volunteer their services at the mosque. We're talking about brothers who have security, organization security, official security services, to volunteer some of their workers to come to the mosque during certain times to ensure the safety and security of the worshipers that come to the masjid. This is not a joke at this point. I hope that we are watching. This is not a joke. It hasn't been a joke. But unfortunately, as Muslims, sometimes we can be very reactionary. We wait until something happens and then we take our precautions rather than making preemptive necessary strategies to ensure the protection and safety of. And I mean, it's just, I just hope that this was a wake up call. That's all I can say.
No, I agree 100% with you. And that brings us to the topic today that I wanted to discuss with you, and this is something that is, it's very prevalent. And I think the last time that I had you on, we talked about the same thing. But, Brother Imam, I have to let you know that there are so many things that our young girls in particular are being faced with today. I'm going to just tell you and just come right out and just say it that a lot of our young girls today, Muslims, they are out here attempting to commit suicide. They are involved in lesbian, girlfriend relationships. Forget about the boyfriends.
Right.
This has become the trend now that is very, very prevalent in the Muslim community. And as a father, as an uncle, as a big brother, many of our youth, our daughters, our nieces, our cousins, our neighbors, little girls that we watch grow up in the masjid, this is the things that are happening. The pressure has become so much on them that as parents, we've told them you can't talk to boys, and we're not getting them ready for marriage. So what's happening is a lot of them are turning away from the boys. Okay, well, I'm going to have this relationship with this girl. And they're looking at these girls, and they are having open relationships with their girls. And I'm not just talking about the regular girls in the community. I'm talking about our hijab-wearing Muslim girls. I see it every day going home on the train. I see it. So this is not something that I'm making up just to have a conversation. I see the young Muslim girls hugged up with other girls with short haircuts, pants hanging down to their pants. This is the reality that I see here in the city of Philadelphia each and every day.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he prophesied that there will come a time where men would find, companionship and comfort with other men, and women would find companionship and comfort with other women. So, there is, an Islamic reference, to that. And what I also want us to, be aware of is that, that might be the case in Philadelphia. I don't want to make it seem like that is something that is, broad brushed across, across the U.S. and across, Muslim communities. But if we talk about Philadelphia in specific, there is a trend. There is a trend of, I wouldn't say lesbianism, because I don't think a lot of these girls are fully committed to the whole entire lifestyle of lesbianism. I think that a lot of times, especially in inner cities like Philadelphia, you have a lot of, let's go to the root of it. As I said to you before, Jihad, when you first text me, when we said, well, let's talk about these issues, I said, no, let's get to the root of those issues. The root of those issues. And a lot of times the root of those issues is what goes on in the four walls of the homes that many of these young girls are being raised in. Rape, molestation is, at an all-time high with a lot of our young girls. And that is just the bottom line. If we are going to be totally honest about this type of conversation, then we have to be, we have to factor that in, that a lot of our Muslim girls have been traumatized emotionally, have been traumatized sexually, have been introduced, to sexual activity, sexual, behaviors, especially in inner cities. Bigger inner cities like Philadelphia, like New York, like North New Jersey, some of these, DC, Baltimore, you name it, and go to any inner city and you ask any young Muslim girl, has she been exposed, whether it was done to her directly or whether she saw it being done indirectly, whether she was, informed about it being done to one of her sisters in Islam, another young girl in the community. It's prevalent. And a lot of times the dabbling in, the whole lesbianism or the girlfriend, phase, a lot of times them, inclining towards that type of behavior is the end result of sexual confusion. Not to mention that in some of the high schools, and the high schools is very prevalent. Even here in Delaware, in the middle school is very prevalent. It's very easy for you to walk into a middle school and see two girls holding hands, kissing by a locker. It's very very easy for that to happen. And when our Muslim children are being exposed to this, not to mention that, maybe some instances of molestation has happened to them in their own homes, what more could we expect? And then on top of that, there is no real discussions in the Islamic community from a leadership perspective about any of this. You don't hear, when is the last time you heard a khutbah about any of this stuff? You know what I mean? It's like issues affecting the youth are not important. The most important thing is making sure that you understand Tawheed, making sure that, you're making your salats on time, making sure that when Ramadan comes around, you can almost determine what the khutbah is going to be about depending on whatever season we're in. And that has become, the norm with Islamic leadership. And it's like issues that are facing the youth are just not important at all. Until it begins to affect our children and we see the behavior manifest in our own home, then it's like, well, what do we do now? It's like, well, why are we waiting for something to happen? Why not address these things? And then you have, alhamdulillah, with all due respect to some of the Muslim organizations that are out here that are doing the work. You have Sister Jessica with Jessica Cares. You have Sister Shakira with, her organization and her program. And this is all going on in Philadelphia right now. And I don't understand that why the masajids don't get behind, these sisters who are organizing these groups, organizing these, programs to help our youth. If the masajid are not going to, assist, if the imams are not going to assist, why not actually help and support those who are actually doing the work on the ground? Even, Sister Sharia, what I'm saying? Like, you have people that are on the ground right now in Philadelphia that are doing the work, grassroots. And you find that the masajid don't support them at all. It's like, rather than support them, we are in competition with them.
But why is that though? Why is it that as a community that we're not rallying behind these things that we know that are affecting us right in our homes, right in our communities? But it's kind of like you said, like there's like a blind eye being, like we condemn the Catholic Church and we talk about the pedophilia that's going on there, but we won't talk about these things that are very much happening in the Muslim community, such as there was an article that was put out about a particular masjid here in the city of Philadelphia, and I'm not going to go into details about
I'm aware of it.
But, someone sent it to me, and I was blown away.
Yeah. But it happens. It happens every day. It happens every day. Every day. Even when I was the imam at UMM, we put a stop to, brothers and sisters trying to get married. We had a particular incident where a brother was trying to marry a sister who was 16 years old. And we denied him. We said, no, we're not going to marry you here at the masjid. You know what I'm saying? And what did he do? He took the young sister and he went to another local masjid in the city of Philadelphia and they married him. And then the girl's mother, the girl went missing. I guess she went on her honeymoon with this particular individual. And the girl's mother, who was a non-Muslim, came down to the masjid, and spoke to myself and Qasim about the whereabouts of her daughter. We're like, well, we don't know where your daughter is. We denied them. We told them we're not going to marry you here. And they went off somewhere else and got married. And, as long as there are loopholes like that, it's like we're working against our own, our own advancement, where as Farrakhan said, that we're enemies to our own progress. You know what I mean? Like we become enemies to our own progress. And, to be honest with you, I really don't. I think that some of the times that we don't address these issues because we think that these are just youth issues and that as long as they're teenagers, these things are going to exist. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? Like, and this is what it is. And then sometimes I think that we don't address these things because we think that, focusing on the older people in the community. And I mean, be honest with you, as what was said to Malcolm X, focus on the youth and the elders will follow in shame. And I don't understand why the focus or the concentration is not on the young people. If you have a full masjid, if you as an imam, student of knowledge, are doing a class, and the vast majority of the people in your class are from the ages of 35, 40, all the way up to 60, gray beards, red beards is all in your class, then I think that you are missing the point. And those are the people that are in your class. If you're teaching a class in the masjid and 85 to 90% of the people that are sitting in front of you are from the ages of 35 to 60, you are missing the point. You're missing the point. Go after the youth. Why have we neglected them? And it's like we're concentrating on the people that we believe will listen to us. Right? Because the older, the 35, 40 years old, it's easier to relate to them because they've had some, mishaps in life. They've had some, some downfalls in life, and, they're more readily available, mentally to listen to us. And it's just like the youth. It's just like as an imam or student of knowledge, it's like you got to alter yourself and your dawah to appeal to a younger crowd. And that's something that some people are just not willing to do. That's something that they're just not willing to do. So they rather stay where they are in hopes that at some point the youth will bump their heads enough and then fall back into the masjid and then sit in a chair and listen to them, rather than them going after the young people. And believe it or not, the young people they're not difficult to appeal to. The young people just want realness. They can spot BS. They can spot bull stuff a mile away. They can spot the phoniness because they live in a world where everything is entertainment. So when they look at religion, they look at spirituality, they're looking for something different. But if you're offering the same thing from a spiritual perspective or a religious perspective that they are already getting when they listen to music and when they go to school, and that's all they're getting, they're not going to listen to you. They don't even take you seriously.
Now, with your leadership conference that you're having in Washington, D.C., what are some of the things that you're going to be talking about? What's going to make your conference any different than some of the other conferences that many of us have been throughout the years? Because, to be honest, Brother Imam, we get behind mics, we get on Facebook and Instagram, and most of us, we get on there and we talk. But what type of action plan would you like to have? And I know that, your resources is limited just like the next person. But what resources or directions could you push these young people into, or a lot of these leaders that will be attending your conference to? What would you like to see rather happen with your conference?
Well, it's not a conference, it's a convention, which is a little different. A conference is something that is organized by a particular organization, and the topics are selected, hand-selected. The speakers are hand-selected, and, people are invited. They're charged a fee, and, that's pretty much how a conference works. A convention, on the other hand, there's no particular organization behind it. Although I am the voice behind it, I am not the organization behind it. There is no organization behind it. We found a location. I came up with a theme, and people responded. You understand? I didn't hand select any speakers. People presented, their expertise. They presented their qualifications. I filtered it. I have a group of people that also work with me that filters the applications. And they were, selected based upon their qualifications. So this is something that was created for the people, by the people. You know what I mean? There is no organization behind this. There is no hand-selected speakers based upon their notoriety, based upon their popularity. This is based upon qualifications solely. I don't care about how popular you are. I don't care if nobody knows who you are. The fact of the matter is that you have qualifications that justify you speaking, making you an authority on this particular topic. And what I would like to happen is for the imams, the boards of administrations, and for all other masjid officials to come, sit for a moment and listen. Because for the past 20 years, imams have been the ones doing all the talking. Students of knowledge have been the ones doing all the talking. And in the realm of social, the social component, or the social component of the Islamic fabric, I think that imams and students of knowledge know very little, including myself. And that's as it relates to, clinical therapy, as it relates to mental health wellness, or, as it relates to, school education, as it relates to, running businesses, organizations. I think that imams, students of knowledge, out of all of the people who are qualified to speak on those issues, they are, the matter of fact, the least qualified to speak on any of those issues. Mental health issues. We don't need a slew of ayat and hadith to be given to a crowd of people about how to handle mental health issues. We don't need an imam or student of knowledge or graduate from this university or that university to sit down and pull out a whole bunch of statements from Ibn Taymiyyah and Fulan from the great scholars of Islam to speak about issues of education and how to run a school and how to, create a 501c3 and how to move forward and how to, solve the problem of domestic violence in our communities. We don't need that. And that is what has been going on for years. Muslim imams, students of knowledge have monopolized the platforms that should have been used to solve a lot of the social issues that we're dealing with right now. Facts.
Now, let me ask you something, because what you're talking about, I've never seen it done. I've seen people come close. So you are embarking on something that's totally different. You're taking a very different approach. You're saying that you want to hear from the people, where most conferences we hear from the imams, the sheikhs, the students of knowledge, the scholars.
Absolutely. That's exactly what's going to happen. And that's what should have happened a long time ago. When we're talking about mental health illnesses, there are not too many imams that I know that are qualified to speak on that issue. When we're talking about education, secular education, Islamic education, there's not a lot of imams, students of knowledge. I mean, believe it or not, many of your run-of-the-mill Salafi, students of knowledge, many of them are dropouts themselves from the Islamic university. So you wouldn't even qualify to speak about issues of education regarding our children. You know what I mean? Like, just because you dip your toe in knowledge doesn't mean that you've now become qualified, that you become an authority on education. You are not an authority on education. And you have many of our brothers and sisters, man, who have been working in the field of education for decades. Some of whom have PhDs, have master's degrees in education. And we need to hear from them. Many of whom have, many of these brothers and sisters, man, have spent years teaching in universities, teaching in schools, teaching in, colleges. And we totally have dismissed them and muzzled them for years and have allowed imams, who are in their mid to late 20s and early 30s to assume positions of authority in realms in which they are not an authority, Islamically or otherwise.
Do you see what you're doing? And I'm just speaking about you. Do you see your style, your brand, and if I could say this, and I don't want you or anybody else to take this the wrong way, your brand methodology of teaching and preaching, do you see it different than the imams that have been out here for the past 25, 30, 35 years and have not built any institutions and do not have any resources to give to their own people? Do you see, basically what I'm asking you, do you see what you're doing and what you're embarking on, your books, your speaking engagements, as a new hope for this generation out here now? I do. And I hope that it's taken that way. I don't mean to slight anyone. I mean, but if you feel slighted, then it wasn't intentional. But I have to do what I need to do to make sure that I have a lot of sins to atone for. I have a lot of stuff that I need to answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. And as Imam al-Bukhari compiled Sahih al-Bukhari over a period of 16 years, and every single hadith that he put in that book, he made 2 rak'ahs istikhara before he put that hadith in his book. Over 7,000 hadith in that book. And he said he did this so that it would be a hujjah. It would be an argument between him and Allah on the Day of Judgment. So this is my hujjah. So if I offend anyone, if I slight anyone, I'm sorry, but I don't have a lot of time and I got a lot to atone for. This is my hujjah, my books, my organizational skills, what I do, everything that I do, my movement, everything that I do is my hujjah. That is my argument in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I don't have a lot of time to waste. I don't know when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to call me back. I don't.
Now, have you been criticized by many other students of knowledge, imams and scholars, with your brand of what you're doing? Because you're coming with a new style, and you are attracting a lot of people, and people they're not following you, but they're taking your information. They're finding your information to be very beneficial.
I have been criticized by many students of knowledge. The sad thing about it is that it has never been done to my face. That's the sad thing about it, because I'm open for dialogue. I'm open to any dialogue. Challenge me on anything. I don't care. I never profess to be perfect. I never profess to be right on every single thing. But I have been criticized by many students of knowledge in Philadelphia and outside of Philadelphia, but never to my face. For what reason, I have no idea. We like to gossip behind the scenes, but no one has ever brought anything to me, to my face.
Now stay with us. Now we got a few minutes. I want to try to knock out these 4 callers we got. We got Fred calling from Chester City. Fred, good afternoon and welcome to the show. Fred?
It sure is.
Fred, good afternoon. Peace. Welcome to the show. You're on with Imam Shadid Muhammad on Islam Today.
All right. There's a couple of things I want to say.
Got to be quick, brother.
You know, speak about the mass shooting in New Zealand. And I think what we got to do as far as the people, like black people, we got to be conscious of what's going on around here.
Yes.
Like the brother spoke about earlier, it's another one laying in the cut. Won't come out and do the same thing. You know what I mean?
Now, Brother Fred, if we can, we want to just move past the shooting part, because Imam Shadid's he's pressed for time. We got to get ready to let him go. What's your next question or statement?
The next question is, like, what's up? When somebody made a comment about having a prayer in Love Park.
Right.
And I look at it like that's what we do. I mean, I ain't got nothing against religion and praying and being a believer. But I think that's where we sleep at. We bow on our knees praying, asking for forgiveness. But the next one of them, we whoop it. You know what I mean? These dudes is evil, man.
Yes.
I think we got to be better more prepared as a people, man, to understand what's happening out here. Because, like that last caller said, or the doctor.
Yes.
Another one going to imitate him, and there's another one after that, and another one after that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I thank you so much for your call, brother. Thank you. Let's go to Amin, who's been waiting very patiently in North Philly. Amin, Assalamu alaikum, peace. Welcome to the show. You're on with Imam Shadid Muhammad on Islam Today.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I want to send salam on Imam Shadid and him and his family. Allah continue to bless him and his works, and still admire him for taking up the subjects and matters that we need so much in our community. That said, I came in on midway to comment, and I just have to disagree in that the imams are not reaching out to our young people. They are reaching out to our young people. Our young people are not responding, and we, as the older Muslim community, is not really getting our hands dirty, going out there, seeing how come they're not responding. Okay. There are several masjids that reach out to our young all the time, pretty much begging them to come into the masjid. They don't come, or they come in numbers. So I believe that the parents of the young people have a much bigger role in, getting our young back into the masjid. Yes, we have failed. The other thing that I wanted to comment on is that...
Got 10 seconds, brother,
okay, yeah. I don't think that the imams and the students of knowledge have failed if they look out in their classes and see the older people. Because for one thing, our even the older people were miseducated in Islam. There's these students of knowledge and these brothers that are coming back from the universities with the knowledge of Islam that's putting us on the right track, that's getting us to understand and practice.
Brother, we should have been. I got to let you go. Let's try to let Imam Shadid answer those. Thank you, brother.
That's my point. Shukran.
Well, to the point of the older generation being miseducated, and while that might be great, but what ends up happening, let me tell you what ends up happening. This is why I said that when a student of knowledge or imam looks out into his crowd and he sees that the vast majority of his listeners and the vast majority of his followers are between the ages of 35 and 60, why is that problematic? Because once they get whatever information they're getting, all right, from this student of knowledge or from this imam, they use that in many instances to place themselves above many of the youth. They use that to beat the youth up. You don't see them becoming more merciful and more compassionate and more understanding with the youth. Rather, they take that information and they use that to validate themselves after years of being misguided. So it's not helping the youth for them to gain that knowledge. It's only helping them. Whereas if we help the youth, then what happens is they will in turn digest that information, process that, and then they will in turn turn around and help the elders with that knowledge. You don't find the youth when they learn a little bit about it's because they have been humbled by their own circumstances. So when they learn a little bit about Islam, they, in most instances, they are just trying to survive, and they're going to create programs like, Sister Jessica, like, Sister Shakira, like these were people that were in my classes. These were young sisters that were in my classes. And what did they do once they begin to gain enough knowledge and enough confidence? What did they do? Shakira created her program. Sister Jessica created her program. You see what happens when you educate the young people? But when you educate the elders, right, a lot of times, I'm not saying all the time, but a lot of times they use that to beat the youth up. And it pushes them further. And as far as, the imams reaching out to the youth and trying to get them to come back into the masjid, that's the biggest problem. We're not trying to get them to come back into the masjid. We're trying to get them to establish a connection with God. They'll find their way back to the masjid. If the religious institution is there, they will find their way back to the masjid. You can't make the masjid the end all be all. We're trying to get the youth back into the masjid. No, we're trying to get the youth back in a great relationship, a healthy relationship with God, and they will find their way back to the masjid.
Now, I want to take this very last call before you go. Good evening. We lost him. Okay. Now, tell us more before you go about your program. If anyone is interested in making a donation to help offset these costs, if they want to attend, if they're able to attend, and, if you're able to talk about that.
Well, I don't expect any donations. We're the type of people that sit around and fold our arms and see how this is going to play out. And then, if it looks like it's going somewhere, then we'll get involved. So I don't get involved in that. If you decide that you would like to help out financially, alhamdulillah, if you really want to do that, seek and you shall find. I'm not asking for no donations. We're good on that. The second thing that is that if you would like to attend the convention, if you have something to offer, something of value to bring to the discussions that are going to be held on those 2 days, that is April 20th, Saturday, April 20th, and Sunday, April 21st. This will be taking place in D.C. The location is only being given to those who fill out the application and go through the entire process. Then the location will be disclosed to them. But as far as the public, the location has not been disclosed to everyone. All right. If you look on my Facebook page and my Instagram page, you will see the flyer for the Islamic Leaders Convention. All are welcome. There's no one that has been, excluded or no one that will be, dismissed. I've seen applications that have come through from imams that, I'm not necessarily particular about, but alhamdulillah, I'm not going to deny anyone. If you want to come and you want to contribute, you want to, then feel free. Feel free to come. But we are trying to establish a system of operating procedures that can be shared across masajid, across Islamic centers, to at least give people an idea, to at least give masajid an idea of some of the components that are missing from many of our institutions that will help the social atmosphere of the people that are attending their masajid.
Well, this is beautiful, brother, and I'm so very happy that you are doing this because, as I said, you're taking a different position. You're out on the front line. You're writing books. You're speaking all across this country, and you're doing something that we don't see being done. Could you imagine if this type of thought process was around 25, 30 years ago, maybe how it advanced we as a people the African American Islamic community, where we will be here in the city of Philadelphia, New York, New Jersey, Trenton, D.C., where would we be if we had a different mindset of just stop talking and have more action?
Yeah, I agree.
May Allah bless you and your family for all that you're doing and continue you on this great path of what you're doing. And I am definitely a fan, brother, and would like to attend the event that you're going to have in April. And so people have to go online and go to your website and fill out the application.
Yes, they can go not to my they can go to my Facebook page. You'll see the Islamic Leaders Conference flyer. At the bottom of the flyer, there's an email there. You can send your email in. An application will be forwarded to you, and you fill out the application, and your application will be approved, and you will be given all the details.
Thank you so much, brother. Please close us out in prayer, please.
ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Oh Allah, we ask you for the good of this life, the good of the hereafter, and to save us from the fire.
Thank you, brother Imam. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
That was Imam Shadid Muhammad. Go to his Facebook page, go to his Instagram page, follow him. The brother has a message he's trying to do.
So that is the end of that discussion. So as I mentioned in my post, I opened up the Periscope so that we could kind of continue the discussion. I have a few minutes before I got to conclude. So if any of you, after hearing what you heard, have anything that you would like to contribute to the discussion, please feel free to do so. Anyone would like to contribute to the discussion? Business owners will be allowed to attend. All can attend. We're not, but I'm saying that the discussions that are going to take place are not necessarily for, imams. That's unless an imam has, a particular degree or qualification in a certain field that is related to the categories that are there. Then other than that, then we're just asking the imams to come and take a listen. We're never, so knowledgeable that we can't learn something from someone else. As far as the attendees, the people who are coming to attend the convention, we would pretty much like people that, have some type of stake in the Islamic community. We're not looking for people that just, you ain't got nothing else to do, so let's go over here, let's go down, shoot down to DC and see what's going on, and let's go check out the convention. This is not, like this is not that type of, program. We want people to attend that are actually going to bring some value to the discussions that are going to be taking place. It's agenda-based. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Sister Tamikio. Thank you so much. Alhamdulillah. I'm not going to take, time from what discussion, to discuss the convention. I mentioned the convention before. The flyer is on my Facebook page and my Instagram page. It's the Islamic Leaders Convention that will be taking place Saturday, April 20th, Sunday, April 21st. It's now 2 days, inshallah. We have a long list of speakers that will be coming from Georgia, from Atlanta, from North Carolina, from New Jersey, from New York. We will not be streaming this live. Sorry. We will not. It will be recorded, but it will not be streamed live. We want people to come, show up in person, not to sit in your home, behind a computer or a phone, commenting about what you believe is right and what you believe is wrong. If you believe something that is right or wrong, then get involved. There are too many, internet champions, people sitting behind the internet, people sitting behind phones, and commenting about what's being done, what's not being done, and yet you don't get involved with anything. You know what I mean? Like, no. If you feel that this is important, be there. If this is important, as I told one imam, he was like, I said, well, are you coming? And he said, I don't know, I got to check my schedule. I said, okay, well, if it's important to you, you'll be there. If it's not important to you, or if you have other things that are more important, then, it's all about priority. It's all about prioritizing. If I had a previous engagement and I saw something like this coming up, I would cancel my previous engagement. I would make arrangements to do it another time. As a speaker, as an imam, you are the one that is desired. You are the one that people reach out to. So that means that if you would like to change the date on a program, you have the power to do that. You have the power to do that. And I think that we don't utilize our power. If someone hired me to come and give a talk or whatever, you reached out to me. So that means that if something else that is just as important or more important comes up, then I need to readjust my schedule and you need to follow me in that. That's just how it works. You're a leader. Like, I'm not for hire. I'm not an imam for hire. I'm a leader and I charge you for my services. But I don't work for you. So if you ask me to come to do a program and you had a date set and something else important, just as important or more important comes up, I need to rearrange my schedule and I need to attend that. And we can either change the date or you can find someone else. It's just simple as that. I don't work for you. I'm not an imam for hire. I'm a leader. And when my leadership expertise is needed in a particular area, then that becomes the priority. I don't know, maybe I'm just looking at it a little different. That's the way that I function. I'm sorry. I can't speak for everybody else. That's the way that I function. I can't speak for everybody else. That is the Islamic Leaders Convention that will take place April 20th, April 21st. That will be in D.C. Location will not be disclosed except to those whose application has been approved to go. Secondly is the webinar that myself and my wife have prepared or have put together, inshallah ta'ala, for those of you who are either in polygyny, probably thinking about going into polygyny, or just would like to have more knowledge about polygyny itself. All right, it's called Polygyny Decoded. It's a series that myself, my wife, this time, and then of course we will have that clay couple on next month, in April, inshallah ta'ala. And it's called The Game of Nights: Unpacking the Jealousy Bag, Polygyny, the Right and Wrong Approach, and Tips to Make Polygyny Work. And this is a polygyny workshop webinar for couples that are in polygyny, or couples that, people that may think about going into it in the future, people who have been in the past, or just would like to have more general knowledge about this particular marital construct. Polygyny is probably at the top of the discussions amongst brothers, and probably very little information, very little knowledge about it. All right, from both a male and female perspective. That's what gives this webinar, a different twist to it. And that is that you're going to be hearing from a man and a woman in relation to issues of jealousy, issues that it relates to separating your nights, my right, my night, your night, issues, especially the jealousy piece. That's very important for men to understand the things that make women jealous, or the things that trigger a woman's jealousy. And to hear from a woman on how you can, as a woman, deal with your jealousy, navigate the nuances of your jealousies. All right. Hear from a woman about that. That's very important. You don't get this type of information going to a masjid or going anywhere. Right? Most of the couples that are in polygyny, whether they're imams, students of knowledge, and I know many that are in polygyny, but you would never hear a public lecture about it. All right. So that is Sunday, March 24th, 1 to 4 p.m. We will be using the program Zoom. So you don't have to travel anywhere. You can watch directly from your phone. You can watch directly from your computer. If you have a laptop or a tablet, you can sit right in the comfort of your own home and you can attend this webinar. You do not have to go in person. All right. We will be streaming it live for the people who registered and paid for the course. The webinar is only $65 per couple, per person. I think it's $55 for singles, and if you are a couple, $65. All right. And all of that information is on my Facebook page as well as my Instagram page. You can see the flyer. I posted it this morning. Inshallah, we have a few seats left. We have, alhamdulillah, a few people that have already registered. We're kind of limiting the seats to 15. So I think that we have about 10 left as of today. And that is Sunday, March 24th. That is actually next Sunday, inshallah. That will be next Sunday, 1 to 4 p.m. If you're interested in attending the webinar, you can go to my Facebook page or my Instagram page, and you can look at the bottom of the flyer. There's a link there for you to fill out the registration for it. All right. If you would like to know more from a woman's perspective, what makes a woman jealous in polygyny? What are some of the things that trigger her jealousy? What are some of the things? How can a woman navigate her jealousies without creating a catastrophe, right, in her marriage? Men, how the right way to approach polygyny and the wrong way, right? And the wrong way to approach polygyny. You have many men who have the right intention, but you approach it the wrong way. The way that you approach it is the wrong way. And therefore, you put your wife in a situation where she resents you, right? And resents the fact that it's like almost like a woman is powerless. She has to watch her husband communicate with a woman that is not his wife in a manner that has not been legislated by Islam, and then turn around and marry this same woman, and she can't do anything about it. Powerless. And why would a man put his wife in a situation like that? And she's going to resent you. Even after that marriage dissolves, which most likely it will, because anything done that starts off the wrong way will usually end in the same fashion. And, she's going to end up resenting you later on for that. You know what I mean? Like, how do you expect to have a healthy, happy, polygynous marriage or relationship and you went about the situation the wrong way? Now, those of you who go about it the right way, you're still going to run into some problems, and you need to know how to handle those. All right, so inshallah ta'ala, this will be Sunday, March 24th, 1 to 4 p.m., and we will be using the program Zoom, inshallah. Were there any other questions or comments about what was presented? Any other comments or questions? How to get back to Allah? It's a whole other discussion. In order for you to know how to get back to Allah, I got to know how far away from Allah you are. That's a whole nother discussion. I got to gauge where you are in order to find out how to get back. How to start praying 5 times a day. I mean, when you look at prayer like you look at food, you eat 3 times a day, right? At least once or twice a day, right? Nobody has to tell you to eat. You start to feel that you're thirsty, you drink. You start to feel that you're malnourished. You start to feel that you haven't been eating healthy. So you go grab a salad. You go grab something, healthy to, give you the nutrients that you need, right? When you start to feel it physically in your body, you go and you do what is necessary. Similarly, spiritually, right? When you feel that you are spiritually depleted, when you start to feel like you are spiritually malnourished, right? And you start to do what is necessary to begin replenishing your faith. It's not rocket science, honestly. It's not. And I hope I'm not speaking from a place of privilege. And I hope it doesn't come off like that. But I'm just being honest with you. I think, as some of the scholars, they say, kullu insanin tabibu nafsihi, that every human being is his own doctor. You know what your ills are, and you know what the cure for those ills are. We do. We know. We know. You don't need somebody to, prescribe you some type of medication for your diseases. If you know what the illness is, the sickness is, then you should already know, that's half of your cure right there. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. Hopefully, I will see you guys at the convention in DC, bi'idhnillah. Please go to my Facebook page or my Instagram page. Fill out the application, get your approval, book your hotel. And inshallah ta'ala, we are going to, we're going to change the narrative. I'm sure about that. That is something I have absolutely no doubt about it. They say that indecision eventually becomes decision. Like when you become indecisive about something for so long, eventually you get put in a situation where you have to now be decisive about it. You understand? Like, we've been going like this for too long for us to continue like this. So whether it happens in DC or whether, that's just the starting point for it and it happens later on, eventually the narrative will change. It will. It will change. I'm 100% positive about that. It's not optimism. I'm sure about that. The narrative has to change. We can't keep, continuing on as we are. Otherwise, we're saying that Islam is going to be completely obliterated. And I know that that's not going to happen because the Prophet ﷺ promised that there will always remain a group of people from his ummah that are open and apparent on the truth. Make no mistake about it. Unapologetically Muslim. None can harm them who forsakes them, who goes against them. And they will remain like that until Yawm al-Qiyamah. That is a promise from the Prophet ﷺ, and I believe that. I believe that. So there's no doubt in my mind that, this convention and whatever is going to take place after it, inshallah ta'ala, is going to set the tone for a change in the narrative amongst African American Muslims. It has to. It has to. We have lost too much at this point. We've been so fragmented and separated and, so much. And now we're saying enough is enough. And there's enough people out there that feel just like that. I'm sure there's enough people out there right now that feel like enough is enough. And we don't need anybody's permission. I don't need an imam's permission. I don't need a masjid's permission. I don't need a sheikh's permission. I don't need any. That's a farce. That's something that we have been fed a long time ago. Oh, you got to wait till the masjid give you permission. Or you got to wait till the imam pulls the trigger. Or you got to wait till scholars in Saudi Arabia give you the okay. Man, please. Please. I'm not waiting for nobody's permission. To safeguard and preserve the Islam of my children, I don't need anybody's permission for that. These are our children that we are losing. I don't need anybody's permission for that. You can label me whatever you want to label me. I could care less. I ain't going to lose one iota of sleep. But what I will not do is sit back and watch Islam be stripped from my children due to the environment out there, sitting back on my hands waiting for some sheikh or some imam or some masjid to give me permission to do what I believe is necessary to safeguard the Islam of my children. That I will not do. And you can call me whatever you want to call me. Obviously, I've been called so many things, since probably 2007. I've been called so many things and it hasn't stopped me yet. So you can kind of tell by my pattern of behavior that whatever label you give me does not thwart my efforts whatsoever. Not at all. Absolutely. IDGAF. You know what those letters stand for. Absolutely. Look in my eyes and you tell me, am I a person that actually cares what you think about me or what you say about me? I don't. Not at all. Not one iota. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. Thank you for taking time out to spend with me this afternoon. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. I pray those of you, the initial talk that we were supposed to have was about losing our youth. And we kind of got sidetracked on that because of the discussion about what happened in New Zealand. But it is a discussion that needs to take place. How have we lost our children, man? While we sitting around, educating the elders into this matter of fiqh and that fiqh matter and this issue and that issue. And while those are all legitimate issues of the religion, in the meanwhile, our children are out in the streets, gone. Many of them use drugs. Many of them have adopted, alternate lifestyles. Many of them, have adopted philosophies that are anti-religious, let alone anti-Islamic. This is what has become of our children. And keep in mind, we've invested so much in them in their youth, putting them in Islamic schools, teaching them, Quran, and, they're going to Sunday schools, and we're doing all of this stuff at the and then only for them to get to 14, 15, 16 years old, and there's no Islam whatsoever, nothing left. So where are we going wrong? Like, where are we dropping the ball? At what point are we dropping the ball? And keep in mind, every child, it's not every parent's fault, right? It's not every parent's fault, because some children are just inherently not going to be religious. That's just who they are. We can push Islam on them as much as we want. We can say salam alaikum to them and use Islamic phrases in hopes that they would kind of snap back into this mold where we are actually comfortable with who they are as Muslims, but some of them are just not built like that. And if you have children that pray, you have children that still identify as Muslims, whether they conform to the religion according to your standards or not, consider yourself blessed. As I said in the khutbah last week, that there are many prophets and messengers who weren't even granted the privilege that many of us have. And we've taken that for granted. The Prophet ﷺ wanted his uncle to be Muslim, and Allah said no. Prophet Nuh ﷺ wanted his son to follow him. Allah said no. He wanted his wife to follow him. Allah said no. Prophet Lut, he wanted his wife to follow him. Allah said no. So why is it that these prophets and messengers, their family members weren't granted the same tawfiq, the same divine success to follow the message of, their fathers? And we have Muslim children in our midst right now, consider yourself blessed. They may not be the best practicing Muslims. They may not be the best, but you do have a foundation to work with. They do identify as Muslims. They do identify with Islam. Work with that. Work with the little bit that they're giving you, and stop imposing on them your version of who they should be as Muslims, that they're never going to be that. Work with what they're giving you. If you say, hey, son, let's go to Jumu'ah today, and then let's go to lunch afterwards. And you say, you know what? Nah, I can't. I got to work. I got to do this. I got to do that. But, we can pray right now, or we can pray, together, or whatever the case may be. Take what they give you. And utilize that moment, And then, of course, first and foremost, get up at night and pray for your children. Make dua for your children. Dua is very powerful. Make dua for your children. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. Wa akhiru da'wana an alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.